Hello Tamers, Cyberdrill back in day, and happy Halloween with day 3 of the decklist countdown for the release of Special Booster 2.0. Well, given that it's Halloween today, I decided to be a little bit cheeky and do something special, as this ends up being a new iteration of 7 Great Demon Lords. And well, before you crack into it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to help with the channel. Well, let's get into it. Well, going over egg lineup now. Still the bread and butter of full playset of Gate of Deadly Sins. As the main egg of the deck, it pretty much allows for, obviously, all of your cost reductions, as well as your self-blowing, and as well being the end game of reviving Inagudo from trash. And well, that's it for the egg itself. Now on to the rookies. For the most part, my rookie lineup has not changed at all. Still being the 4 copies of Structure Deck System on Blanc, and 4 copies of EX6 Lucemon. Blanc still being a good, still good enabler, and starter for as a draw engine, just discarding off a 7 Great Demon Lord that you could immediately tuck under Gate of Deadly Sins next turn, as Blanc will get blown up due to Gate. Luce is still here as the de facto searcher for the deck, as well as enabler for Chaos Mode plays. Then going up 1 level, the deck still runs 2 copies of Porcupamon, since you still need a form of removal that isn't options to get rid of Floodgate rookies that impede on your playstyle. With Porcupamon still being the main choice, given that you get to have it delete a level 3 or lower twice as part of its on-play, and then when it gets deleted by Gate. Then, going on to level 5s, it still is the 3-1 split of EX6 Chaos Mode and BT7 Chaos Mode, with EX6 still being, well, the very good powerhouse that is for the deck, as it pretty much forces your opponent to either delete something, or you burn the security to recover one, while also being able to recur any 7 Great Demon Lord trait from trash in response to getting blown up by the Gate. And that also can lead to some plays such as, I don't know, say Surprise Levia, EX5 Levia to be more exact, given that it gets played out by the effect when you've already cleared out your own board. And then from there, the BT7 Chaos Mode being there as the, Tamer Hate that allows you to be able, with you having more control over deletion, as it's something that you control instead of a choice for the opponent. Well, into the main the meat of the deck itself. Going for the core level 6s that enable most of the, powerful plays in here, being the full playset of EX6 Bielzy for the rush, being a rush body, and as well being on play to trash the top 4 of your deck, and then if you end up hitting 10 cards in trash, allow you to de-devolve 2 on 1 target. And then another change for the deck is that I brought down EX6 Creepymon down to 3, and this ends up making sense later with one new addition that I added to the deck. And well, creeping on here is a blocker body, a natural blocker body, and is able to, on play, pretty much nuke off one of the opposing Digimon with the lowest DP, and then if you manage to send it to trash, you get to mill the top power of your deck equal to that target's level, further enhancing possible plays for the deck. And then to go inside with BLZ, I still run the one BLZX as another 7th grade Demon Lord name, as well as being another Aggro Avenue. As again, you did on Digivolve, you burn the top opponent's security for every 10 card in your trash. This can come in handy to speed up, well, putting your opponent in a corner, as depending on the board state, you could cheekily, well, get rid of one security off of the unevolve, or be able to do a Hail Mary by digivolving into it when stack is, well, stacked pretty high. And that's it for those level 6s. Going on to another main booster for the deck is still the 2-1 split of EX5 Levia and EX6 Levia. With the EX5 Levia still being the very good removal tool that is, as well as EX6 Levia still being used as another way to, well, stack cards underneath Gate. And then to top that off, for additional Tamer hate, I end up running still the one copy of Levia X, as it still sees play as Tamer hate specifically, given that, of course, you still don't get to, well, swing with it, given the natural order of things with how the deck goes. And that's it for bruiser sides. I also end up changing ratios with Belphemon, as I've foregone sleep mode and went in and switched out for another copy of EX6 Rage Mode, given that Rage Mode is pretty useful in its own right. Given that it's on play, it allows you to trash up to 3 cards from hand to then suspend down all level 5 or lower Digimon on board for each, and then you get to hit all the opposing, well, delete all opposing lowest play cost Digimon that are suspended, which ends up being a much more easier way to stall a game than sleep mode in retrospect. And following those two is still the one Lilith and one Barba as the 7th grade Demon Lord names. Lilith still being a useful stall tool, given that she also her Alterns effect can still go off in the midst of Gate, as she then can actually end up hitting a level 5 or lower Digimon to prevent herself from leaving. Albeit, you also can make use of her on play to then have one opponent's Digimon delete itself as part of its own effect, and also burn away security. While Barba here is still there as just a name, given that you also could use him as an avenue to revive Pokemon from trash for another usage. Albeit, it's the only real job Barba has in the deck now, still. And then, continuing on from there, on to the main boss of the deck. That still being 3 copies of Agudamon, the Doomsday Boy that he is, as you pretty much aim to bring him out, stack, and have trash be stacked with 7 different 7th grade Demon Lord names, and pretty much devastate the opponent's board when you swing with him. As Agudo still ends up being quite powerful, albeit now having a gun pointed at his head, now that Paladin Mode Ace is, well, very active in the meta. And then from there, still backing it up, being the one copy of Shine Gray Ruin Mode, since it's still a very good removal tool to remove wide boards and weaken the opponent. And that ends up working well in the sense that you could just, well, self-return by having the minus 5000 DP overlap for its on-delete and when digivolving over your level 6s. And then going into options, for the most part, it's also still mostly unchanged. As for utility sense, I end up still run the one copy of Calling from Darkness to make use of its own effect. To then, well, to be able to, well, recycle any of your purple Digimon that's been stuck in trash. And then I brought down Rise of 7 Grain Demon Lords down to 3, as it still sees use, just that it doesn't really, well, let's just say it doesn't really make use of, have its use as a more when put at max, given that you still are able to, well, fuel Gate by adding in 7 Great Demon Lord to the bottom of the deck, and then just be able to play, well, bottom of Gate, and then for its delay in response to any of your 7 Great Demon Lords getting blown up, pretty much being able to bring out a 7 Great Demon Lord that's under Gate. And then following that, for removal options, it's still the 3 copies of Rival's Barrage, 3 copies of Brian Crush, and then 1 7th Full Cluster and 1 7th Lightning. With Rival's Barrage being very versatile in the deck, given that you can still end up hitting it in security and trigger removal, walls, or throughout the building in this deck, pretty much set up its delay to then also recur stuff that's in trash. And then Buying Crush being very live in the deck, given that you just discard a 7 Great Demon Lord after you make use of it, to then, well, pop an opposing body, and then keep it as insurance in face of the opponent playing out any Digimon through effects, lest they see a Leviamon come out from trash. Then from there, 7th Full Cluster and 7th Lightning are here as more generalized removal. 7th Full Cluster hitting the lowest level, and then 7th Lightning hitting level 4s and 6 when checked, and can go off whenever you go into their respective X antibody. And then for the mainstay of the deck in this format is the 4 copies of the EX7 Shoto Kazuma for the deck, as this ends up helping the deck in a very useful way, since Shoto ends up being a memory gain tamer that allows you to gain memory as long as your opponent has a Digimon, and has the end of turns, suspending, with the main broken part being his end of turns effect, allowing you to grant one of your Digimon piercing and blocker, well, most notably being blocker, given that now all of your bodies that you spawn out, and any of your Digimon that you play out, will now have blocker and be able to block the opponent to allow survivability and stall. Albeit, it does get a little bit counterintuitive, given that you also run EX5 Leviamon, so you also have to weigh the cost there. But overall, that's it for the deck side. Now on to combos. And now on to the combos. For the most part, it's still the usual spiel of aiming to see System Blanc or Luce in your starting hand as soon as possible, really. Just so you could start start finding pieces needed to build up your toolbox, as you pretty much solve for the long game until you can drop a Gudo onto the board and end the game there and then. Then starting from that, Shoto is also another good card to see in the early game, given that you will want to establish him early just so you can create blocker bodies at the end of your turn to then answer the opponent's board. Then from there, any of your 7 Great Demon Lord trait names that you want to see trashed are free game, as you pretty much can trash them off of Blanc, or have them sitting in wait as Gate starts to stack up sources and cost reductions in the early game. Though, in speaking of the early game, for the most part, I'd say definitely aim for Lilith, Creepy, and BLZ for the early game, as they pretty much are the ones that can come out pretty early and start establishing the game plan. And then lastly, Pokemon, as they definitely want to see in hand at some point, just in case you have to deal with floodgates that prevent you from, really playing the deck. And then from there, it's then really just establishing stuff to just counter, as you have Rise to then bring it back 7 Great Demon Lords from trash or in hand to establish Gate's Agudo condition. And then at some point also trying to see Agudo in trash to then have Gate be live. Since for the most part, it's just all toolboxing to ensure that you get to your endgame pretty smooth as possible. As well, that's it for my updated take on 7 Great Demon Lords. And this is Cyberjaw signing off, and happy Halloween to you all.